Strikes, Gambit, and the Crucible are all said to be the core modes of Destiny. Yet with every season, Bungie seems to stray further and further from this philosophy by outright ignoring the core game modes. They don't receive new content, loot, or updates in general, and this has led to most of the core activities in Destiny having a fall from grace. With this video, I hope to look at why the core modes are so bad right now, and what Bungie can do to fix them. First of all, why are they so bad? Well, it's because all of them are some combination of being repetitive, unfun, and mostly unrewarding. I mean, first of all, let's look at strikes. You have two options of strike playlists within the overall strike mode. There's the normal Vanguard strikes, which are about 10-ish minute long missions with no variation or replayability to them, and they reward loot about equivalent to a public event. The replayability in this mode comes from having a wide range of strikes to play, so players aren't stuck grinding one strike over and over again. This is different from the Nightfall strike, which offers high-level upgrade materials but are some of the most boring content in the game to play. Bungie only offers one Nightfall strike a week, meaning players are stuck grinding the same 10-minute linear mission over and over and over again all week, just to do the same thing on a different strike the next week, just to grind for materials that you can get through a wide range of activities, so there isn't even any exclusive loot to these activities. So if a player wants to play some strikes, they can either play a bunch of super easy and unrewarding strikes, or they can grind one slow-paced and repetitive strike all week to actually be rewarded for their time. Both options are unfun, repetitive, and boring. Now let's go over what's wrong with Gambit. Gambit was actually in a pretty good spot before Beyond Light released. It had several different modes under its name, which each offered their own loot and gameplay experience. But with the release of Beyond Light, Bungie stripped Gambit of these different activities by getting rid of Gambit Prime and the Reckoning, and arguably ruining the standard Gambit mode in the same process. And at the same time, all of the Gambit loot and Gambit Prime loot became useless through the process of weapon sunsetting, which spat in the face of the player's time that they invested into obtaining that gear. This has left Gambit in a very boring and unrewarding state, and sadly, much like Gambit, the Crucible has also had a very similar experience, with much of its content being gutted with Beyond Light. Bungie deleted all objective game modes in the Crucible, along with all long-range Crucible maps. This has turned every game into a team deathmatch variant, taking place on a hand cannon to shotgun ranged map. And this combined with weapon sunsetting has made the Crucible very repetitive, boring, and just unrewarding in general. So how should Bungie fix these problems? Well, basically they need to look at what Season of the Drifter did for Gambit and replicate that with all core modes. Season of the Drifter gave Gambit a more hardcore mode that was unique and fun through Gambit Prime, and Season of the Drifter created the Reckoning, which gave Gambit players a change of pace to grind new and exciting loot that directly impacted their Gambit experience. These additions to Gambit not only made Gambit super replayable through different gameplay options, but also made it more fun by giving a little something for every type of Gambit player. It did all of this while making Gambit as a whole much more rewarding through adding new loot, much of which has still been some of the best we've ever seen in the game. Weapons such as Gnawing Hunger and Spare Rations dominated the game, and the Gambit Prime armors offered very real and powerful benefits to Gambit Prime. This allowed players to play without getting burnt out, and allowed them to experience a real sense of progression as they got more powerful through obtaining more powerful loot and armor. What Bungie needs to do in order to fix the core modes in Destiny is to bring back all of that Gambit content that they vaulted, and replicate it with the other core modes. This means creating a revamped Nightfall experience, and a revamped competitive Crucible playlist, and a revamped Trials experience. These revamps should include armor sets and perks similar to what the Reckoning and Gambit Prime offered. But in addition to revamping the endgame for core activities, Bungie needs to also undo a lot of what they did with Beyond Light's launch in terms of content vaulting. Bungie needs to bring back all of the maps and strikes that were vaulted in order to keep these activities feeling fresh and engaging. So ideally, every mode would have its own pseudo-endgame experience through either the Reckoning, Nightfall Strikes, Survival, and/or Trials of Osiris. And to accompany these endgame experiences, there should be gear that has perks and abilities which will directly help players with their respective activities. And again, if Bungie needs a template for this, they should just look at how Gambit, Gambit Prime, and the Reckoning all work together. Overall, these changes I'm proposing would make the core activities within Destiny much more enjoyable, but at the same time, Bungie would still need to support the core of their game going forward. This means they need to develop multiple new Crucible maps, Gambit maps, and strikes every year. Along with this, every mode needs to have a vendor or activity loot pool refresh every year. This means new armor, new weapons, and possibly new mode exclusive mods. And before someone says, Bungie can't handle yearly loot refreshes anymore, yes they can. Bungie refreshed Iron Banner, Future War Cult, New Monarchy, Dead Orbit, Vanguard, Crucible, Banshee 44, and the World Loot Pool in general every year during Destiny 1. To say Bungie can't handle yearly refreshes of their 3 core modes is insane. So now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the new light experience. Ever since Bungie made a large portion of the game free to play, they have refused to make any new content for these aspects of the game. This is beyond infuriating, because Destiny is packed to the brim with microtransactions, because if players want the coolest looking armor, the best shaders, the best spares and ghost shells, and if players want some exotic weapons, these can all be earned only through microtransactions, and the worst part is that all of this content used to be stuff we earned in Destiny 1 through challenges and grinding. Like, it provided actual content and reasons to play the game, but was removed in order to make Bungie some more money. When these pieces of content first became microtransactions, Bungie did it under the pretense that it will help fund free live content for the game. And, well, 6 years later since the Eververse was created, we have seen little to none of this free live content, and most definitely not enough to reflect the millions of dollars players have invested into Silver. Because the majority of live content, or free live content that we've gotten, is either rehashes of old pre-existing content, or just small limited time events that are barely even considered events and are basically just bounties with a new icon. So I will say it again, the supposed free live content does not reflect the money Bungie earns through microtransactions, and I mean seriously, Destiny 2 has just as much microtransactions as Fortnite and charges close to the same price for said microtransactions. And for Bungie to not be able to fund at least one new Crucible map every year with their big new fall expansion, it's just beyond stupid. But that is all I have to say, and until Bungie can implement changes like I suggest in this video, or create their own new improvements and new systems to improve core activities, the core of the game will get worse and worse and the player base will get smaller and smaller. So if you have any thoughts or anything you'd like to add to the topic or questions for me, please leave them in the comments below, and if you liked what you saw and want to see more like it, please like and subscribe, and until next time, goodbye.